Hi everybody, welcome to this video about drawing the feet, the legs and an overview of the total body. So let's start with drawing the feet. So here I'm showing that the feet is actually built like the hand and vice versa. So if we put this a bit on the side, you can see that here we have this red part. So like this, what you see here, it's connected to this green part. And then we have the fingers, or the beginning of the fingers, and the toes. And then we have it purple, the actual toes. And for example, if this is the feet, so this part would be the thumb or your big toe. So here this is like your thumb, and this is like your big toe. So this shows a bit why it's important to have a basic understanding of the bones. And I use it, so let me show this. Here, I'm showing a simplified version of the bones, but then in basic shapes. And this also shows why it's important to really learn how to draw these basic shapes, like this sphere or this cylinder and this cube, and to learn it how to draw it in 3 dimensions, 3D. So that helps. With those shapes, you can build anything you want. And I'm showing that a bit here. So if we're drawing the feet, starting with this cylinder here, then adding ball here, and then for this part of the feet, we're using a shape like this. So this is basically a bent cube. And again, this shows how important it is to learn these shapes. Cylinder, and then the toes. And we also have a part for the heel. So like this. I think maybe that's even the biggest part, difference part of the hand and the feet. Basically, it's your, how you say, your palm. So if you have this shape, then we connect all these shapes like you're putting on a sock. So if you put the skin on top of it, you get this shape. And you can divide this shape in 3 parts. Like divide it with this first part. And here, like here. And divide it here. So now you have the leg, the base of the feet, and the toes. 1, 2, 3. 3 parts. So and later I will show a bit more about it. So let's turn this off. And again, here you can see all those the basic shapes to draw the feet. Basically just what I've shown. And this is how I usually draw. So here you can see me using these shapes, but if you're really beginning, I would advise you to start like this. And when you're a bit more advanced with it and you can draw these shapes, then you can do it way more sketchier. But even when I'm stuck with drawing feet in a drawing, sometimes I do even still draw all these steps, but I'm only doing it when I'm really stuck. For example, when you're drawing a hard perspective, and so on. So here, adding these shapes on top of it, connecting all these basic shapes. So these basic shapes help with construction, but now I'm connecting all these shapes, and that helps creating this flow like this here. So when you have this, then you can go to the final line art and adding in all these details. And later I will tell a bit more about that. So, and then you can add the details. So for the side view, it's basically the same. So adding a ball, adding here, this part, using this line like this here, and this cylinder here, and the leg part here. And now we can draw this sock or the skin on top of it, like this here. So here and here. So the front, fine. So if you're drawing the leg or the feet from the front, you would see a line going up here and here for the ankles. So this part of the ankle is a bit lower than this part. And again, later I will show a bit more about that. And as you can see here, this feet would have this shape. So here's the big toe, and then here are the smaller toes. So the bottom side of the feet has a bit of this shape. So it has this arc in it, this action line. And you can draw this, follow this shape in it. So here, and then here, these toes. So later we'll show a bit more about it, like here. So here, again, here you can clearly see that these are the bones, and this is a simplified version of the bones. And then I'm connecting all those shapes together. So what I would advise you if you're practicing is practice drawing this and then adding these shapes. And practicing drawing these shapes will really learn you how to draw in 3 dimensions. So here I'm showing feet from different angles. So again, in different steps, and I'm also showing a little bit more of those blocks. I can show you from this one. So we're starting with a ball, and then we're having here the leg, and then we're adding another ball here. So we can do, actually we could do this, and then here's also this cylinder, the small toe and big toe. So on the toes you can recognize which part it is. So this is the outside of the feet. The big toe is the inside of the feet. So here we are adding this arc with this dent here. And here from this big toe, we're going up to this ball. And you can see that here, this shape, here this is wider than here. So this, and this is this. So this is wide, and this is not. Then we're adding here the shapes. But here you can see that I'm using all these little planes to draw the feet. Again, the big toe and these smaller toes are more or less the same width. So, and what you can also already practice is breaking down the feet in these, like these drawings. And a way to do that is maybe make pictures of your own feet, or Google up some pictures of feet and draw them like these breakdowns here. So divide them in 3 parts. So and when that's too complex, then you can use that ball, here, this line and this cylinder, and then this toe, so that you're using these steps that I shown earlier. So again, here are all the names of the bones, but you don't necessarily have to learn them, but it's good to have a bit of an understanding of those, so you know where this method I'm teaching, where it's based on. So here you see some breakdowns of the feet. And what I find important about this drawing is that I'm showing why it's a ball. So here, this part is a ball. Let me first draw the whole part. Again, this part. Then we have this line here. This cylinder here. And then these toes. Let's erase this, actually, these parts. So here, this ball, and you can do that with your feet actually now. You can move your feet sideways and up and down. So this moves 2 directions. This part, and that's why it's a cylinder, can only move up and down. So play around that with your feet, see how that works. And you can see that here. So this one goes down, and this one here goes up. Also here, so try to notice how the feet moves and how those joints in the body work. So basically we have joints that are like a ball that can move up and down and sideways, but we have also joints that can only move up and down. So drawing the feet from the back, you can do that with the perspective grid. And of course, this tutorial is not about perspective, but basics about perspective is that you have this horizon line and a perspective point, and there are lines from, so like this. So if we have a feet that is walking on this perspective grid, you can draw it on this grid. So here are the toes, and here's this cylinder. And then we have the shape of the feet that's going up. So that's why it's important to follow those basic drawing steps, and it makes it a bit easier to draw it like this here. So here again, you can break it down in this cylinder that is moving like this, and this feet shape is drawn like this. So maybe if you never drawn perspective, this can be quite hard, and then I would advise you to start practicing drawing boxes and shapes in perspective. And once you learn that, then these things will get more easy. It stays hard drawing these things, but it will get more manageable. So let's move to the next feet part. Here I'm showing again, but then a little bit different, how to use basic shapes to draw the feet. So here you can use this shape. It's like a pie or like a cheese. So like this here. So you can think of it as that it's an almost like a cheese, like this here. And we can use this basic shape to draw the toes on, like this. And then here, this cylinder. So there are a lot of different ways to draw the feet, but they're all based on, again, those basic shapes. When you have this, then you can add all the little details. And you can learn those from watching at photos in your own feet and see if you can find some of those small details. So here with this toe, for example, here. So I started drawing this toe like this here. But then later, I started to draw it like this. So here, 3 parts, and here, going down like this. And here you can see that we can, even this toe, we can break down in 3 parts. We have a block that's like this, a block that's like this, and another block that is like this. So 3 parts of the toe. So like this here, and like this. So I can add in here these nails. So the way to learn how to draw all these bodies is to look at it and break it all down and practice it step by step. So the top of the feet, you can, oh, this may be a little bit too much. Let's make it a little bit less pushed. So here, and then we can add this first step. So like this here. So now we're following this action line like this here, and then we're adding this shape here. So, and on top of that, we can create, draw what we did before. So here the toes, and then a cylinder for the leg, like this here. So here, and you can add these lines if you want to learn more about the perspective. I always call these perspective guides. You can add these details. And again, to learn these details, look at photos and your own toes to figure these out, how this works. It's almost like fingers. So again, for the bottom of the feet, starting with a line, and these lines aren't parallel. No, here they are a bit narrow, and here they're more wide. So they're going out of each other. So and that's always appealing when drawing, that you don't use parallel lines, but you're trying to use lines that have contrast. So here, drawing the bottom of the feet. Like this. So first, the big shape. Then divide this big shape in smaller parts, like this here. So when we have this, then we can create the big toe and the smaller toes. And this works for realistically, but also for cartoony characters. It's only different proportions. From the shapes like this here. And now we can draw here these shapes. So actually only this part will only touch the ground. And again, you have your own feet where you can compare it with, or photographs from feet from other people. So here, this here. Again, all this information from reference. Never scared of using a reference. It's always good. So, and we have feet from, but drawing the feet from perspective can be quite hard. And one trick to do that is to start with the bottom side. So here we have this feet here, and we're drawing this bottom side here. Something like this here. And then we're adding a little bit more of detail, like this here. We're breaking this part down. So I'm starting with drawing first part in perspective. So big toe and smaller toes. And then when we have the bottom, we can add the other shapes added. So like this here. So when we have this, we can draw in those. So breaking it down in these simpler shapes can help making it, make more easy to draw these things. Like here. And then here this feet. So again, another one, maybe this from the front. So first think about in perspective. And that's why even when you don't draw backgrounds or something, that's still useful to learn how to draw perspective, to understand how it works. So here, draw this plane, draw this shape, and then this shape. So think first in shapes, and then add these lines to create some depth in that shape. Now we can break it down, the toes. We have this part here. And again, I learned to draw this from pictures. And then to break it down in all these shapes. And then adding all these details like this. So, and if you have a hard time drawing these kind of things, it's useful to learn how to, especially with cubes. So what you can do is first learn to draw how you draw a regular cube in 3D. And also draw a bit through it to see if you can get it correctly so that these parts match up. So, and then maybe try to draw this cube when it's flattened and in perspective. So here. And then maybe you're drawing a cube like this. Oh, it's almost the same. So maybe like this here. So this is a great practice to draw these shapes in perspective. And that will also help you drawing these feet like this. But a good tip is drawing feet, and maybe you can use it for other body parts as well. First draw a flat shape, and then adding all these 3D shapes to it. So then adding bigger shapes, and then save the details always for last. I see a lot of people starting with details at first, so that can get a little bit wrong. So let's look at the pelvis or the hips. And this is actually a great thing to practice drawing basic shapes, because a lot of times I'm drawing the pelvis just as a shape like this. So just a basic shape like this. So here, this basically is just a cylinder like this here, but then here it's narrow, and here it's wide. So, and if you want, you can add more details to it to draw the hip bone. So then you can add these shapes here, these shapes. So this also shows using a cylinder to draw complex shapes like this. So like I'm showing here. So what you could do is practice drawing first this shape, then draw this shape on top of it. And if you want, you can add this shape on it. And what's difficult about this shape is that, let's erase this a bit. Here we have this, our tailbone, like this bit. Then we have these shapes going like this. This can be a little bit hard, but maybe if it's hard, try it. And maybe it will go wrong the first couple of times, but try understanding. Maybe you can look up some photos of the pelvis bone that will help you. And it's just a way of thinking. You need to learn how to think in 3D, how to visualize these shapes. And that will help the drawing part as well. So here I've drawn the bone, and it's simplified bone. Sometimes I'm drawing the pelvis like this, but I don't usually do this a lot, but I learned this from an old drawing tutorial that I was drawing, and you see this a lot. And it really looks a lot like this, like simplified version of that here. Here you can see these two discs, this disc in the middle, and then these parts here that's connected to the legs. How I draw the pelvis a lot is with this shape. So here you can add with this more organic shape like this here. And here this is a bit flat, but still it's not perfect flat or something. And then here like this. So if you would see this shape from the side, it will look like this. And from the back, you can look a bit inside those leg parts. Later I will show a bit more. So what I find interesting is when you draw the 3/4 view, here this round is the back, and then here we have this S shape, because here is the cross and then it goes into this shape. So here you have this this S shape. Maybe you've seen that from other tutorials. Oftentimes I try to work with CSI. So what I mean with that is when I'm using a C line, I'm using a straight line opposite of each of it, of an S line with a C. So I never do this or this. I'm always trying to play around with contrast in lines. So here, drawing the pelvis in different angles. So again, a trick to help with drawing in perspective is start with drawing a cube in perspective. Like this. And that makes drawing the pelvis a lot more easy. So here, 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 and here. So drawing these cubes first. So what I would advise you is to maybe try this out, follow these steps. And when you're doing figure drawing, so you have a lot of websites where you have models posing in different poses, and then you can try to draw their body parts in these steps. So look on, for example, YouTube or somewhere else, and then you can focus on drawing these parts. So first draw a cube, like I'm showing here, and then inside that cube you can draw the more complex shape, and then you can adding the details. So again, I'm also showing that here from the back. Here you can see a bit of the back, the front, and the back. So maybe you can practice from drawing these images first, And then when you're more advanced, you can look up figure drawing in your search engine. And sometimes you can also do this in your city or your hometown with figure drawing, and then you have models, and then you can practice drawing this based on the real thing. And that's why figure drawing can be really useful to practice these things. So maybe if you're going figure drawing, you can focus, mainly focus on this part, for example. And learning to draw has a lot to do with that you're learning one by one. So drawing can be complicated, but that's because there's so much to learn. But the best way to think of it is like if you're going to fitness, you learn one muscle, training one muscle at a time. You're not training your arms and your legs at the same time. Most of the time you're not. But it's same with drawing. Learn perspective. Learn one day for perspective, and another day you're practicing construction, or you're learning drawing the hips, or you're learning drawing the eyes, but focus on one thing at a time. I think that will benefit you way more. So here I'm showing the pelvis and how it's connected to the legs. So if we have the back of the pelvis like this here, and then we can draw these balls here, and then we have the butt, the back, like this here. So these balls are connected to the legs like this, and this here standing. So here you can see standing, and when this, we can move this leg up like this here, and that move, what happens with the butt is that we get this stretched. But if this leg is moving this way, so maybe you can practice this. Go standing around and you can notice how your butt is moving. So when this leg is going up, this bulges. So here this bulges. So basically what happens is when you have a ball and it's stretched, this happens. And when you have here this, then this happens. So let me see if I can make an image where it's more clear. So for example, if this happens, then we have this. But when the same shape moves like this, you can see that here this bulges. And that is the same with our butt. And that's what I'm trying to show here. So here it's stretched, and here it's squashed. So stretch and squashes. And from the back you can see this. So can you notice which part is stretched and which squashed? So this is squashed and this is stretched. So try to notice that. And that's also with a lot of the different body parts. You can see those stretch and squash when moving the body a lot. So this is a bit of generalization because these rules don't always apply. It depends more on your body build. But naturally, normally, the standard is that female has wider hips than male because of the ability to give birth. So that has influence on how that looks. So if I'm drawing a sketch, I usually start with drawing the back like this here. So these almost stick figures. The glutes or our bottom looks like a butterfly actually. Or if you're drawing it from the sides, it actually looks a bit like car tires. You have these shapes. it looks almost like a car tire, or at least in my mind. So here we have these shapes. And when you're drawing more skin on it, you get these kind of shapes. So like this here. And again, it all depends on the body type, the fat percentage, the amount of muscles. Really has a lot of influence. So one thing I'm sometimes used is that the female is this heart-shaped bottom up, so that you get more of this shape when you're drawing the back of the female. So with the male, oftentimes it's more upwards, so you get more of this shape that is pushed up. And you can also see that this is more round, this is more angular. I'm showing that a bit more here. So here it's more round, and here it's more angular. So notice that when you're drawing the back of your character. So that was the pelvis, and that's the end of the first video. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks.